What's really good, everybody? Welcome to the Angry Sports Chat here on my YouTube channel. I'm your host, M. Willie. Don't be silly. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I've been trying to do this for a long time. Just gonna go ahead and jump right into it, right? Because y'all not here for my introduction. You're here to get these topics popping. You know what I'm saying? Angry Sports Chat in the building. Let's go. It's how we do it. Get right to it. Topic of the day is my top 5 players traded at the peak of their powers. So what we're going to take into account is how old they were, what kind of season they had moving from one team to the next, and any other circumstances like injuries or the time that they were traded, to what team they were traded from, to what team they were traded to. If that applies, we're going to go ahead and put all that into the discussion. But if y'all agree with the list, y'all don't agree with the list, well, that's why we're here to talk about it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the very first person on my list, I'm going to go ahead with Allen Iverson, AI, the answer himself. As a Philadelphia native, diehard Sixers fan, it was a hard one because Allen Iverson was definitely one of my favorite players to look at. Number 5 on my list, he was 31 years old, and I remember the whole thing like it was yesterday. He was demanding a trade. You know, they're a few years removed now from their appearance in the finals 5 years ago. Prior to this trade, 5 or 6 years ago, prior to this trade, and they were pretty much a middle of the pack team at this point. So he's getting frustrated. He wants to win. You know, he's getting older. A lot of players are retiring a little bit earlier at this point in time, and he's like, listen, I want to go ahead and try to get a ring. So you're getting up there in age while you're still at the peak of your powers, because he was indeed the peak of his powers at 31. It's not really old, especially for someone his size. Go ahead, send him to the Denver Nuggets. Of course, he paired up with Carmelo Anthony. They had a nice little run for a few years, and we got back some pieces for that, along with some draft picks that later turned into other things. But the man was averaging 31 points, 7 assists, and 2 steals a game in the first 15 games that he played in Philadelphia prior to being traded. So remember, the man wants out, but he's still a competitor. He's not going to go over there and he's not going to sit out games like we saw AD doing or we saw other guys doing because they know they're about to get traded. Not a shot, I'm just saying. And he competed anyway. The man was healthy, or maybe wasn't even that healthy, but the man wants to play basketball. So therefore, he played basketball. He knew the trade was coming. He knew what he demanded for the team. But at the end of the day, the man wants to play basketball. So he wanted him to play. He was still one of the better players and definitely one of the better scorers in the league, even at that time, even at 31 years of age. Team me up with a young Carmelo Anthony who's an ox, and he's a scoring machine in his own right too. It was a match made in heaven as far as I was concerned. But yeah, he's number 5 on my list for the top 5 that were traded at the peak of their powers. Number 4 for me is going to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was traded from the Bucks to the Lakers. Now, he did win one championship with the Bucks, so at least he was able to do that along with his co-star Oscar Robertson. But they were like maybe 3 or 4 years removed from that championship, and they went ahead and got him on out of there, and he was traded to the Lakers for a few nice pieces. But that season prior, before he got traded, he was averaging 30 points, 14 rebounds, close to 5 assists, and 3.5 blocks. Pretty impressive, but that's definitely Kareem-like numbers right there. And he was also 28 years of age. Did I mention that? 28 years of age. He will be the second youngest on this list. He'll be 99.96% of any type of basketball fan you want to name, whether you're an analyst, do this professionally, coach, whatever. I'm probably going to say 28 is your peak year. It's like the beginning of your peak, like your peak, like. And this is what the Lakers were getting. A player that's peak. 28-year-old Kareem. That's crazy. Number 3 on my list may get a little bit of slack because people put him in the top 5. But then again, a lot of people don't put him in the top 5 for some things. They recognize him, but they just don't put him in the top 5. Probably because he didn't win a lot, because of how dominant he was. But my number 3 player on this list is none other than Wilt Chamberlain, aka the Big Dipper. You already know what the story is on Wilt. Most dominant player of his era, one of the most dominant players of all time. The man just put up unreal video game 2K on rookie mode like numbers. It didn't make no type of sense. Like how you put up 50 points per game. Your off game was like 30 points. And yes, that is the same season where he put up the 100 points in that game, which was not easy, by the way. If you read the stories on how that game went down, it was not an easy 100 points, but he got it done anyway. Going from the Sixers to the Lakers. The Lakers be pissing me off. They've been pissing me off for a minute because they always just get the big names. I don't know what it is about LA. LA ain't even all that. It's not all that. Okay, at the peak of his powers, he's 32 years old now. 32 years old to Wilt Chamberlain is probably 22 years old to a lot of other people. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. How much of a freak of nature he was. Like I said, I'm not going to ignore the stories, even though I was not even thought of yet at that point. But hey, listen, if 1,000 other people are saying, hey, the man was a freak of nature, I'm going to go ahead and take their word for it. I wasn't around to have an opinion on that. And this is what the Lakers, of course, again, were getting at that point. He was averaging 24 points, 23 rebounds, and almost 9 assists a game going into that new team. He did what he was supposed to do. For his size in that era, he did what he was supposed to do. I mean, it's not really far-fetched that he put up those type of numbers in that era. He's number 3 on my list for top 5 that were traded at the peak of their powers. Number 2 on my list is none other than the energetic and the hyperactive and the never ever chilling Russell Westbrook. Now, some of y'all may not agree, but I'm sorry. Y'all already know what Russell Westbrook is about. But if I must remind those, the man is coming off of a 23-point, 11 rebounds, and almost 11 assist season. He's 31 years old. Coming into that next season with his new team, the Rockets. By the way, mind you, that was the 3rd year in a row that he averaged that triple-double. But this man actually did it for three seasons straight. And this is what Houston Rockets are getting in return for Chris Paul, who's actually surprising a lot of people this year. Chris Paul's like 34, 35. No matter how good Chris Paul is doing, I think if you wanted to say, hey, as of right now, who are you choosing as your point guard? Are you choosing Chris Paul? Or are you choosing Westbrook? I think a lot of people are going to choose Westbrook at this very point in time. 35-year-old Chris Paul, 31-year-old Russell Westbrook. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. But the energy that he brings is people just don't match it. I have not seen anybody as relentless ever. He was compared to Allen Iverson as far as relentless as lately, but he been, as far as I'm concerned, he been surpassed Allen Iverson in that regard. Allen Iverson was fearless, but Russ don't chill. Russ doesn't chill. Like, Russ just goes. He sees you, and if he even thinks you backpedaling, he's attacking you, and he doesn't care who it is. And he has so much energy, it doesn't even make any sense. He went to that Rockets team and instantly became the best rebounder, to the point where they just recently traded their big man. I forgot the man's name even, but they went ahead and traded him. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I ain't gotta say his name. Y'all know who I'm talking about. If I don't even know Russell Westbrook's numbers right now, but if I had to take an educated guess, I would say he was averaging like 23 points, 8-9 rebounds, 8-9 assists. Because, I mean, you still got ball stopping James Harden on that doggone team. Don't get me started on James Harden. Number one on this list for me is going to be none other than Tracy T-Mac McGrady. Now, we're talking about the T-Mac who at this point doesn't yet have the label of injury prone on him, right? So this is the Orlando T-Mac going to Houston T-Mac. Not the Houston T-Mac going everywhere else after that, because after that he was injury prone. That's why they shipped him out of Houston. He was in Houston for a good 3-4 years maybe. But the Orlando T-Mac, the 2-time scoring champ T-Mac, the one who made Kobe look like he wasn't the best offensive player in the league at one point. T-Mac was cold with it. Oh, T-Mac. Ooh, I'm looking at Kobe and I'm looking at T-Mac. I'm looking at Allen Iverson. The one shot T-Mac used to do was the hezzy, and then he'll just stop and pull up from 3 like it was nobody's business. And he did it so effortlessly, and he did it with people in his face, or he did it with people who just had their hand down and weren't ready to quite jump. And remember, he's 6'9", 220 pounds. He can jump out the doggone gym. He has long limbs. It just doesn't make any sense. He's a cheat code in himself. Orlando is trading T-Mac to Houston. Here's what Houston is getting. Houston is getting the scoring champion, okay? He's at 28 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and close to 2 steals a game. And remember, like I said, this is not the T-Mac that was injury prone yet. So this is kind of a big deal because now you're going to a team that's formidable, and now you have a legitimate 1-2 punch with T-Mac and Yao Ming, who is also a monster in himself. Oh, and did I mention, maybe I forgot to mention it, one of the main reasons why he's at the top of my list, because he's only 25 years old. 25 years old. No collegiate level basketball whatsoever. Glued to the bench next to his cousin in Toronto, gets shipped to Orlando, almost instantaneously becomes a superstar. That's my number one. T-Mac, no doubt about it for me. Got a couple honorable mentions. I'm going to go ahead because I can't leave them out because they were so, just to me, they just got to be mentioned. Paul George is my number one honorable mention. Now, the only reason why he's an honorable mention is because of how he came out of the season prior to being traded. So he was traded, as most of y'all know, he was traded from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Los Angeles Clippers to team up with Kawhi and that bunch who had taken Golden State to almost their limit without a legitimate superstar. Now, like I said, again, it's how he ended the season. He did play the games, but his shoulder, something was wrong with his shoulder or his elbow or whatever it was on his shoulder, but he was playing with that, that tape that they put on his shoulder now to keep everything in perspective. For the most part, he was injured coming out of that season and even going into the next season. That's the only reason why he's an honorable mention. Otherwise, I would have probably had to make this a top 6 list, because when you're talking about a guy who was an MVP candidate and Defensive Player of the Year candidate in the same season, there was no way you can't put him on a list like this. But all I know is that was Paul George most of last year. The entire conversation was LeBron, Giannis, and Paul George. It was a 3-way race. Oh, I'm sorry, and James Harden. And yeah, he was one of the favorites. He was definitely one of the favorites because he was doing work. But man, those injuries. A second honorable mention, a lot of people don't agree with this. A lot of people don't even like the guy. I don't care. I love the guy. He's one of my favorite players of all time. I know he's not a top player of all time. It's still debatable if he's even going to make the Hall of Fame. But my second honorable mention is not other than Superman himself, D12, Dwight Howard. He was 27 years old. He was still putting up his normal numbers. 20 points, 14.5 rebounds, and 3 blocks a game. Those are pretty much Dwight-like numbers. He's never averaged more than 22.9 a game. So I'm not going to knock him for doing 20 points a game outside of the simple fact that he was definitely injury prone. So you're talking about Paul George, like I said, he was injury prone, or not injury prone, but he was injured coming out of the season and then didn't even start the regular season for the Clippers this year. Well, that year when Dwight got traded, he was definitely injured. He had already missed a ton of games at this point and still put up pretty much good Dwight Howard-like numbers on a bad back. Sometimes freaks of nature do that. But at the same time, again, this is a top 5 at the peak of their powers. And if you're dealing with a bad back, even if you're doing work, I can't say you're at the peak of your powers, because if you were at the peak of your powers, you could have did more work. You see what I'm saying? He still put up Dwight-like numbers, close to Dwight-like numbers, but he was at the peak of his powers, obviously. The man played the entire year with a bad back. That's not peak of the power stuff. I got Allen Iverson at number 5, Kareem at number 4, Wilt at number 3, Russell Westbrook at number 2, and T-Mac at number 1. Do y'all agree? Do y'all not agree? Discuss it in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Who should I put on there? Should I maybe put Paul George in there, or should I put somebody else in there? Y'all let me know what y'all feel. Until the next time, until the next video, it's your boy M. Willie. I'm out.